We had an eventful day yesterday. So, yesterday was the car show. Now, just before I left, I turned this little camera on. This is it's like a GoPro, but it's not. And I mean, I don't know. I saw some reviews on it online on YouTube saying it was a nice, cheap alternative to a GoPro. So I figured, what the heck, I'll get it. So anyway, I turned the camera on, and it's in video mode. And one thing there's some things about this camera that I've noticed, and maybe it's just me, maybe it's operator error, or maybe it's a flaw with the camera, but anyway, I turned it on. I hit the button to start recording, and then I slap it on the truck. Okay, so I just figured out what happened. The camera, for whatever reason, you start recording, and after a few seconds, it says SD card speed is low, whatever that means, and then it stops recording. So that happened on the way down. I only got like 2 seconds. I didn't even get any video of the truck moving. So, here I thought this camera was recording, and I thought I'd have really great footage, and it wasn't. All the way almost to the car show, it was performing very well. I did stall in one intersection, but I was able to restart and get going again. And then, just before, I noticed that just before the turn off to go into the car show, I noticed that it was making a lot more noise. It sounded almost like there was a knocking sound, although it didn't sound quite like a knock. It sounded like an actual, like, something hitting something, like maybe, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think it might be the exhaust hitting the frame rail. I don't know. That's something I have to investigate, is what that noise was. But then as I went to shift, I pushed the clutch in, the RPM dropped down, and the truck just died out. So I coasted to the side of the road and stopped it, and tried to restart the truck, but it wouldn't start. It wouldn't even crank over. We did some investigating, and we figured out that the engine was super hot. The top end of the motor, 180 degrees. Same with the radiator hose, all that. 180 degrees, which is perfectly normal. That is the normal operating temperature for the engine. However, the lower part of the block and the oil pan were up above 300 degrees. That is not normal. So, one issue that it's having is, obviously it's not cooling the engine the way it's supposed to. The theory right now is that maybe some of the ports that the coolant flows through are blocked, and so that is preventing coolant from getting down to the bottom of the engine. But anyway, it overheated, and then the other thing is, the batteries had a very, very low voltage. They were like 5 volts and 6 volts. So we go to the car show, and we get permission to tow the truck into the car show. So we tow it in, and we park it. And now I'm at the car show. And the car show was really great. I got to talk to a lot of people, tell them about the truck. I got some people that were helping me troubleshoot, trying to figure out what was going on with the truck. I got some people that own historic military vehicles, and they were telling me about some of the problems that they had. Toward the end of the car show, I was talking to a guy over by my truck, and my truck is kind of out of the way. It's away from the other cars in the show because they were running out of room. They had almost 200 cars at this show, and my truck was one of the last vehicles to arrive. So it was kind of away from the announcer's booth and all the other cars, and it was kind of out of the way, and I think a lot of people probably missed my truck or didn't realize that it was in the show. It had, the info card on there that like all the other cars, but it was just it was away from all the other cars. And I was sitting over there talking to a guy, and he decided it was getting towards the end of the show, so he decided to go and get some food. So I started walking over there with him, and then I noticed that the announcer's booth, they were saying something on the loudspeaker. Now I couldn't hear it from my truck, and I couldn't hear what they were saying from where I was at the time. But I heard that they were announcing something, and so I figured I'd go over and see what was going on. And I literally said to the guy, I'm going to go see what's going on over here. And right as I'm walking up, they're announcing one of the sponsored awards. So the sponsors of the car show are local businesses, and each business chooses an awardee. And right as I was walking up, they were announcing one of these sponsored awards, and they announced that the winner was Calvin Brooks with his 1952 Rio M35. And I mean, right as I walk up, they're announcing my name and the truck, and I just go up and, get an award. So I got a nice plaque, and my first car show that I've entered in, with my vehicle, with any vehicle, and I win an award, and I was not expecting this. Honestly, like I said, I don't think a lot of people even knew that I was at the show, but clearly the sponsors, walked around to all the vehicles, and so I got an award, a nice plaque on a nice slate backing. Of course, it's the Slate Valley, so it's got to be slate. Anyway, it was just a really exciting time, and I'm really glad that I was able to go down there, able to get the truck down. Despite all the problems, it was a really good day. So then it came time to get the truck home. Now, when we pulled it into the show, we knew that we weren't going to drive it all the way back. We knew that we were probably going to have to grab a dump truck, an equipment trailer, and possibly an excavator to push the truck onto the trailer, and we were going to have to trailer it home. Well, towards the end of the show, I checked the voltage on the batteries again, and one of them was at 12.1 volts, one of them was at 12.4 volts. I tried to start the engine, and the engine turned over, but because the batteries were dying, it wasn't able to turn over fast enough to actually start the truck. But I felt like it would start because it had cooled down enough to where it probably would have been able to start. So I called my cousin, who was the one who helped me get the truck out of the driveway of the garage and helped me get it back here, and he helped me get it down to Granville. So I called him up and was like, hey, I think this thing will start, and if it starts, we can at least get it to the state line. And then from there, we can more easily load it onto a trailer. So he came down with fresh batteries, and unfortunately his batteries are large, so they didn't actually fit inside the battery box, which I was really surprised at. I could not believe that those batteries didn't fit in the battery box, but anyway, we hooked up one of his batteries and one of my batteries that had 12.4 volts. And between the two, we were able to get the truck started. We were able to get the air pressure back up, and it seemed to be running really good. So we decided to at least drive the truck to the state line. So the car show was over in New York State, and we wanted to drive the truck back over into Vermont State before we picked it up with a dump truck and trailer. So we took off, and once again, just before taking off, I turned on the camera, hit the record button, and I put it on the truck, and I watched it, and this just recorded for 7 seconds. And then it says, SD card speed is too low. If anyone knows what that means and how I can fix it, please let me know, because it's weird. It doesn't do it all the time. It only does it every once in a while, and of course, Of course it does it on the drive down and the drive back, the most important, the most exciting parts that I'm trying to record. Now, I've got the in-cab view for some of the journey, but on the way down, I had the camera pointed so that you could see my shifting. That's for an upcoming video on how to shift an Army truck. But I figured I didn't need to point the camera out the windshield because I had this camera. And then on the way back, we were kind of in a hurry, and I figured I had this camera recording. I don't need to turn on the in-cab camera. So I didn't think about turning it on until after, and I got it to the state line. I pulled off at the state line, and the truck was still running. And I talked to my cousin, and this is when my mom showed up, and my nephew. And I was talking to him, and we were debating whether we should leave it here and load it up on the trailer right there, or whether we should keep going. And we knew there was a road a couple miles ahead, so we figured, why not drive it to the road? That way we'll have an easier time loading it up, because the place where we were pulled over, we could pull all the way off the road, but there wasn't enough room for the truck and trailer there as well. So as long as the truck was still driving and everything was good, we would drive it up to the next road and pull it off to the side over there, and then we could go get the truck and trailer. So we started going, and it again was having trouble climbing those hills. Vermont has a lot of hills, and this particular route, it's up and down, and we were on the uphill portion of it. So finally I had to shift gears, and it stalled out, and I tried restarting it, and it was acting like it was going to start, but my cousin came up and he's like, let's just pull it to the, it's definitely having some problems, let's just pull it to the road. So he hooked up his truck and pulled it up the hill and over and to the road, and we stopped there, and that's when we went to get the truck and trailer. Unfortunately, once we got back with the dump truck and equipment trailer, it was starting to get dark, so we were kind of in a hurry to load the truck up. So I didn't get to film a whole lot. And then I did hook up the GoPro, and this time it actually did manage to record the whole thing. I thought, oh, this might be an interesting view, an interesting angle. Unfortunately, by then it was dark, so 90% of the footage that I got with the GoPro on the trailer that the truck was on is just black screen. Here's a few highlights from it. So it was quite an eventful day. It was a long day, but, you know, despite all the problems, it was a good day. So we've reached the point in the video now that the professional YouTubers would call a call to action. This is where you would normally be asked to subscribe or like the video. However, I'm not going to ask you to do that. What I'm going to ask you to do is keep your eyes peeled and let me know if you find anywhere where I can buy a Rio 331 cubic inch inline 6-cylinder gasoline engine. So the ways you can identify this engine, the exhaust manifold is going to say Rio Gold Comet power on it. The exhaust manifold is on the right side of the engine. It's on the same side as the carburetor. Now, they made civilian and military versions of these trucks. The military version had this exhaust gas recirculation system right here, and so the head is a bit different, and the head and the exhaust manifold gasket, the center gasket here, is a bit different on the military version. The end gaskets are the same, and so the general shape of this manifold is the same. The carburetor is a military carburetor. I'm sure it's made by Holley. I'm not sure what carburetors the civilian ones had, but they should all have Rio Gold Comet power right there. But if you see an engine, it doesn't matter if it's the military version, it doesn't matter if it's the military version or the civilian version. The main difference is the head, which I can easily change. But if you see one of these engines, now they might be in a military truck, or they might be in some random truck sitting in the woods. I know that the military, when they switched to the multi-fuel engine, they auctioned off a lot of these Rio gas engines. They auctioned them off, and they were bought by logging companies, trucking companies, and they were swapped into all sorts of different vehicles. So who knows what kinds of vehicles they ended up in. Any kind of logging truck, if you're ever in the woods and you see an old truck, if you can take a peek under the hood and you see one of these Rio engines, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know. Another difference is the military version, the distributor is, you know, this shape, and it's got the spark plugs that are watertight. The civilian version, I don't think they had those. I don't know if there's a difference in the fuel pump between the civilian and military versions. But another way you can tell is over by the dipstick. There is a data plate right there that says manufactured by Rio Motor Company, and it has a serial number on here. I know the military ones had 6-digit serial numbers. I assume the other ones did as well. But that's how you can tell that it's a Rio engine. Continental Motors also made this exact same engine. It was the same engine, it was used the exact same plans, everything was the same on them, except the data plate said Continental, and it didn't have the Rio Gold Comet on there. But other than that, it looks exactly the same. So if you find one of these Rio engines or one of the Continental engines in any old truck or possibly a bus, I know that these were used in buses at one point. Like I said, they would have been original equipment in trucks and buses made by Rio, and some other manufacturers might have used the Continental versions from about 1951, I think, was the first year of 1950 or 1951 was the first year of the 331. Rio did have some other versions. They made 270. They made like 290 something. But anyway, if you see any Rio engines in any old trucks, they would be stock in trucks from 1950 up through maybe the early 60s. However, they were swapped in a lot of the time into other trucks, and so who knows what they're in. But if you see any old trucks in the woods, if you know anybody that has a bunch of old trucks sitting around, maybe ask them, hey, can I take a look at your engines? I know someone who's looking for a particular engine. But if you find any leads to where I can get a Rio or Continental 331 inline 6 gas engine, let me know. You can let me know by leaving a comment on any of my videos, or my email is listed on my channel page as well. Let me know if you know of a place where I can buy one of these engines. Please let me know. So, how is that for a call to action? If you know of any Rio or Continental 331 cubic inch inline 6 engine, doesn't matter the condition, doesn't matter the price, let me know about it, please.